In Chapter 8, we'll discuss the theory of work adjustment. In TWA, we are again pulling from our version of trait and factor, but instead of focusing on the idea of job selection or choosing a career field, we are focusing more on the idea of longevity and tenure in a career or a job field. So this is now referred to as person-environment correspondence theory. It used to be called theory of work adjustment. And we're really looking at this idea of fit, which they call correspondence, and how that impacts your adjustment and ability to thrive in a certain job environment. In theory of work adjustment, there are really two key concepts. Number one, each person has a requirement of their job. So in order to be satisfied and in order to find that job to be fulfilling, you have certain expectations and requirements of that job environment. And then conversely, number two, the job has requirements of that person. So in order for you to be successful, to maintain employment, that job is going to have requirements of you as a worker in the tasks you're supposed to complete, the timeline these need to be completed, and expectations of you. So theory of work adjustment says that when these things line up, things generally go pretty well. So you have satisfaction if you're generally feeling satisfied with the work that you're doing and your needs are generally met by your work environment. And then you have satisfactoriness, which is your employer being generally satisfied with your performance. So how well you're meeting their needs. When everyone's needs are being met, things work pretty well. When everyone's needs are not being met, we have dissatisfaction, meaning things are not going so well. So it could be either that person is not getting their needs met by a job, but the job is feeling pretty happy. The job is not feeling satisfied with that person's work, but the person's pretty happy, or it could be the combination of the two. So if a person really wants some autonomy and connection with others, but this marketing company really wants someone who's personable and able to be independent, maybe it's not going to be such a good fit versus someone who really needs to be integrated into a team and then finding an environment where they get to work with a team. They might find more satisfaction and satisfactoriness in that situation because everyone's needs are being met. So in TWA, having positive job satisfaction is an indicator that there's a lot of good adjustment between the person and the job. And we consider this through a couple of different factors. So it could be through your coworkers. So thinking about a work situation that maybe you've been in the past where your coworkers were very good friends, very supportive, you really enjoyed being around them. They were part of what made your job so great for you. The type of work, so maybe you really enjoy the tasks or things that you are able to do. For example, I really love teaching people how to be counselors, so that lends a lot of job satisfaction to me. The level of autonomy and responsibility, and this could be a person who expects a lot of autonomy, or it could be a person who's overwhelmed by autonomy. So the job satisfaction is really about the level of autonomy that the individual worker finds to be the most comfortable. Similarly with responsibility, some individuals do really well with being delegated tasks and having a sense of responsibility and ownership over something. Some individuals really prefer to be on a team where they're told what to do. So it becomes finding the level of autonomy and responsibility that aligns with needs, expectations, and skills of that person. The next piece is, are you being asked to perform tasks that you generally feel you have the ability to do? So we would hope that in a work situation, you have the ability and skill set to do all of the tasks associated with your job with a sense of satisfaction and completion. And then how well your life interacts with your job, right? So we talk about work-life balance. We talk about how much we need balance between the things that go on in the career expectations and the things at home. And so the interaction between your job and your other life factors also contribute to the sense of job satisfaction. So we would, in theory, evaluate all of these things to determine how much satisfaction a person has in their career. And in this week's module, there's linked some examples of assessments that can be used to explore these different concepts in terms of job satisfaction and in terms of when that's not going well, which leads to things like burnout. So when you're looking at quality of life or satisfaction, these are the elements that we're working at. So when we have correspondence, we generally consider there to be a good match between the worker's needs and the work environment, which we say predicts job satisfaction within TWA. This also refers to how much the worker and the workplace fulfill each other's requirements. So this correspondence piece goes both ways. It's not just about how much the worker feels like their needs are being met, but also in the workplace as well. So work adjustment is really about people having varying levels of tolerance for mismatch. So sometimes we have individuals who are very okay with having a career that doesn't connect with a personal sense of fulfillment as long as it pays the bills. And we have individuals who are very happy doing careers that maybe don't pay the bills as well or don't make as much money, but fulfill other needs that they have. So this idea of work adjustment in the theory as a career counselor is about determining what the needs of the job are, what the needs of the individual are, and how much adjustment is needed. So considering working with individuals in career counseling, you would have conversations about how much adjustment or compromise are you willing to make in order to tolerate a mismatch but get some of your needs met. So what are the most important needs that you have? How tolerable are you to there being some degree of mismatch? And how much is too much, leading to a sense of dissatisfaction in that particular setting? So when a worker has a higher threshold for dissatisfaction, we might have some more options in terms of finding them something that will fit. And when that worker eventually meets that threshold for satisfaction, they either have to make an adjustment or they have to change their career field. It's one or the other. So we can either make adjustments within that particular job or maybe finding a different job in the same field, or we might need to adjust altogether and find a new career field, find a new job, find a new place to get your needs met. So this idea of how much that dissatisfaction a person can tolerate before they need to make adjustments is called flexibility. And adjustments might be small or they may be big. So for example, I recently was able to move my office from a space with no windows to an office with windows. And that small adjustment really helped with toleration of some other things in that work environment that were a little bit annoying. So maybe I dislike certain aspects of the paperwork that I have to complete in higher education. But as silly as it sounds, having that window and having some sunlight as I do it makes a pretty big difference. Or having flexibility to be able to travel or to be able to attend to other things in my life space outside of work makes some of those annoying things in the workplace a little more tolerable. So that flexibility is really that sense of, as an individual, how much you're willing to trade, how much you're willing to give up, how much you're willing to be flexible in order to get what you need, and at the same time tolerate things that are less desirable for you. So this can be adjustments to the self, meaning that I need to maybe take a break, take a vacation, go seek a new skill set so that I can shift some of my work expectations or my job altogether. A lot of you, so like you are in grad school seeking a new skill set because you must need more satisfaction in your job and workspace. So these concepts might be connecting with some of the things you're experiencing now too. So what this ends up looking like is, in the first step, you take some sort of assessment or use some sort of assessment to determine what those needs are, what those interests are. So you might use an MBTI or strong interest inventory, something of the like, to determine, based on personality, what your job needs are, and then also what your interests are. Then you would want to assess celerity. This is a sense of how quickly we're able to conceptualize, approach, and accomplish any kind of new task. So are you a person who needs to take a step back and consider and plan before you jump into something, or are you a person that could jump in and just start working with something right away? You need to assess the pace. So this is the effort and amount of time and amount of work someone likes to put into their job. So are they someone who likes a fast-paced environment with a lot of demands, or something a little slower that gives you some time to breathe and with a little less pressure? Similarly, like, what's your rhythm? What's your typical pattern? Do you like to do the same things every day? Do you like to change it up? What does that look like for you? And how long we can continue doing one task before we get fatigued. So what is our endurance in the workspace? So understanding those things about personality, then we can understand our adjustment style. So how do you tend to adapt to career environment? Are you a person that tends to get dissatisfied very quickly and then wants to change your job? Or are you a person who tends to like to stay in the same place for a while and then just try to make some adaptations or have conversations about ways to make it more satisfying for you? Then we make understanding in step 2 of the job fields, the careers, the demands of those things, what that generally looks like, and then we want to match those things together. So it's a little bit different than a trait and factor approach, but still got that sort of that home sense of like, let's match things up, but we're also thinking about it long term. So we have some different options in terms of how to assess abilities, values, personality, and interests related to career fields. And we can use that information to help then do the matching process and have conversations about what types of adjustments someone might need to make. Generally, this has been around for a long time. It makes a lot of sense, especially as an informal conversation. Is a nice way to talk about how we can maybe make adjustments before jumping to a new career field altogether. So there's a lot of assessment involved in terms of your personality and environment and looking for discrepancies between the two. It's nice if we can do that on the front end to predict possible discrepancies, but we might usually come into this conversation more when those discrepancies and dissatisfaction has already taken place. And the nice thing is that it considers those individual differences. However, criticisms here, there's this underlying assumption that everyone has the same access to skills and training to make adjustments. And in terms of systems, that's not always the case. Not everyone has equal opportunities or abilities geographically, economically, to be able to make adjustments. It also assumes that all careers are accessible to everyone everywhere, and that is not the case. And so I encourage you to take a minute and think about what you think about this theory.